Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. I'm Lucas and today we've got another F124 video, and yeah, this is going to be my complete settings guide. I'm going to try and run through absolutely everything I can. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it, starting straight off to yeah, we're just going to go straight to settings. Assists, we run obviously everything completely off, as that's, what I've used for, over a decade, and also what you need to do in esports. But running through the assist, steering assist does exactly as it says. If you turn this up, it is yeah, helps. It basically steers for you to a certain degree. Braking assist, similar thing. Brake helps you brake to a certain degree, depending on how high or low you make the setting. ABS means that if you have it on, it's pretty much impossible. It's impossible to lock up. So yeah, definitely a very useful assist for new players. Traction control, you have full, medium, or off. Medium allows a little bit of slip from the rear tyres. Full was pretty much no wheel spin whatsoever, and obviously off is yeah, you're at your own mercy of your right foot. Racing line, exactly as it is. You can have it braking only or corners only, or full, and you can do 2D or 3D, which is, preference. Colorblind mode, I've never actually tried that. I didn't even know that was in the game, I'm going to be completely honest, but yeah, a useful feature, I'd imagine. Gearbox, manual or automatic. You can have suggested gear, but in my opinion, you might as well just go manual or yeah, automatic, whatever your preference is. Pit assist, basically, guide you through the pit lane, entry and exit, I believe. And so same for the pit release assist. So this sort of takes over for when you're in the pit lane. ERS assist, probably one of the assists I would advise not using, probably under any circumstance, because when this is on, it's deploying the energy based on what the game thinks is correct, and that means that you're not in control of when it's using or not using the battery, which I think isn't. I think even if you literally had every other assist on, I would still have this one off, in my opinion, and manage it yourself. You're going to probably have a bit more fun and, yeah, get the best out of things a bit better. DRS assist, probably actually quite a useful one to have, because it means that DRS turns on the minute it's available. So yeah, probably one of the more simple assists, but yeah, that's the assists, and of course we run them all off, so I'm going to make sure that's back on elite. Time trial settings, these obviously we're in time trial mode for this video, but yeah, you can turn your ghost on, which I have all of these off because I just like to have myself as a reference, and then you just have the delta time of your own best lap, and you can see sort of the splits of your other drivers that you're up against. If we go on the top left hand side, it shows through the lap on the top left. Yeah, sort of where you are through every sector, like if you're up or you're down through the lap. So yeah, that's those things. And yeah, you can turn all of these on and off. You can have your rival ghost on as well, but I prefer to have these all off. But again, this is a preference thing. But I would say if you're like properly hot lapping, I would say have these off. That's just my personal preference. Rules and flags, useless. Can't do any of that. This is time trial. But yeah, here are my camera settings. This is one of the things I get asked most about. So this is my TV pod settings, which you can which is the no, where's the hide button? Yeah, so this is my TV pod settings. As you can see here, these are the settings that I run for that. And then I also have my TV pod offset settings, which you can see here. I have ran both of these. For some, offset doesn't shake as much, so technically speaking, offset is better if you run, because it doesn't. There's less camera shake just by default. But I just prefer the TV pod for some weird reason. I just can't seem to get away from it. I've used these settings basically for the last 3 games or whatever it is, or the equivalent of this for the last couple of games, and I just like it. So yeah, that's my TV pod and that's my offset, and those are the respective settings. I don't have any cockpit cam settings really, so yeah, don't have any of that for you guys, so apologies for that. But yeah, now we've got on-screen display, OSD customization. That is this is actually how I have mine. Just as a visual reference, obviously it doesn't do it on time trial for some weird reason. Not sure why that is. You have a filter for normal and in the pits, which is a big improvement from before, because last year you had to literally go through every single game mode and set the HUD up. So race, qualifying, time trial, career mode, practice session, it was miserable. So the fact that it's just one filter now, and it's the same for technically everything, even though it's not working on time trial for whatever reason, is better. So that's what I have on the HUD. And now into the settings. Cockpit view, I don't have that on at the moment. Oh well, that's I think basically if you want to have your OSD on if you're in cockpit cam, but obviously we're not in it. My doors are just slammed shut for some reason. I run KPH as that is sort of like the racing language. You can run mils per if you want, it's preference, but I just use KPH as that's pretty much universal across sort of all racing in general. Degrees Celsius is what I prefer. You have Fahrenheit as an option if you want it. Full track map. I would actually highly recommend using this as yeah, it just gives you a fuller picture of what's really going on, and as you could sort of see from the OSD customization, I have it in the bottom left, sort of just above my wing mirror, and I reduced the opacity of it a little bit, just so that it's not as sort of in your face. But it means I can see where every car is at any moment, and I can sort of predict who's coming through at any point, whether that's a league race or whatever. So yeah, I find this, I would definitely recommend it. I have the minimap a little bit smaller and in the left hand side. So yeah, I would just recommend using full track map. Delta time, I have that on, of course. Proximity arrows, you know, you run these things on, really, generally speaking. Driver tags. Now, I run these off because what I found, I actually turned these off last game because well, if I want to know which cars are in front or behind me, I just look up the top left and see. It's basically minimizing excess information, right? So I've got, if a car's in front of me, I just look at the leaderboard in the top left and then I know who it is, right? So, but the driver tags, I have them off because at Las Vegas on F1 23, I couldn't see braking marker boards because of it, and I was like, right, that's getting off. So yeah, that's what I've done there. Start lights, I have them on, of course. Virtual rear view mirror, I have that on. Why is that off? I don't know why that was off, but I run the virtual rear view mirror on, sorry. I didn't even realise I had it off, but that's what I have. I have it really small up the top, so that I can sort of view those sort of things. But yeah, I run that on, don't know why it was off. Permanent session timer, I have that on really small up the top right. I think it's definitely correct to have this on. I wouldn't have it off. Having it on means you know exactly where you're at in any session at any time. And then always display objective panel. I have this off, but if you do career mode, maybe this is a one you might want to keep on. Moving on now, I'm trying to waffle as little as I can. I'm not sure if you guys have realised. Generic settings on the, I believe this is vibration and feedback. I have MFD car setup panel as default, vibration off, but I don't. Some of these are controller settings, so I don't obviously use them. So like adapter triggers are off, vibration off. I'm not on a Logitech here, so 3 of these settings aren't affecting me. But the ERS mode, I have this on hold, so this is your ERS button, so if you press your ERS button like on toggle, it stays on until you press it off, so it's like toggle or hold. I like it on hold, as I think it, I mean, and I used my, for anyone that has fantasy modes, I use my, you can't really see, yeah, I use the top right button here, it's very easy and accessible, and you can hold it basically through corners if you really need to, but it's really easily accessible to use, and I have it on hold as it sort of saves me using it unnecessarily, even for a few percent, and each percent matters in a league race, albeit this game you can recharge battery like crazy, so yeah, I have it on hold. I'm waffling now, apologies for that. Keyboard preset, that's just required, not really going into that. We're going to go into our settings. Now, actually, quite an important one. The game, by default, has brake linearity on 25. Now, if you're using any form of load cell, I would very, very, very highly recommend getting this on 0, as that means that the brake shape isn't being artificially altered by the game. So yeah, I would make sure that this is on 0 if you're on a load cell. To be honest, I would recommend it being on 0 in general. You would only really use linearity in sort of unique situations if it suits your sort of the pedals that you're using. If it's not a load cell, for example, and you really need it to be less sensitive at the beginning. So yeah, we'll run through all of these now. Steering rate, this applies to controller and basically is basically sensitivity of your steering on controller. So it's like having yeah, a higher sensitivity in Call of Duty, for example. So you can have this 100%, higher as the steering turns more, lower as the steering turns less. That is your preference. Steering dead zone, I run this on 0. I would recommend everyone has this on 0. Steering linearity, always have this on 0. Saturation, again, you would only really use saturation if you can't change the wheel rotation on your steering software. So on Fanatec, you obviously change the sensitivity on the steering wheel. The only way you would use saturation is if you can't do that, and it would be very specific circumstance. Dead zone and throttle, you can use this if some people are, everyone's different with their pedals in that respect. So if you lean a little bit on your throttle pedal, it's definitely worth having a little bit of dead zone, because the last thing you want to be doing is be riding the throttle under braking zones. It's horrible. So you make sure that you're not, if you're resting on the throttle and you notice it on like if you're sort of resting on the throttle, for example, and you sort of see it's 1% or so, definitely put your throttle dead zone on. Throttle linearity, again, I would never recommend using this in my opinion. Throttle saturation, again, I really don't see a reason you would need to use this unless it's a very unique circumstance. Brake dead zone, now this is a setting you definitely can use. I personally set my dead zone within the Fanatec software, for example. So I'll rest my foot where I have it, and set the minimum point on my Fanatec software. I've done it both ways. I've had the brake dead zone in the game, purely set on that, and it's definitely something you should use. This is a setting that I would recommend using if you've got a load cell. To set it to like have your foot resting naturally where it is, or like go down a straight and rest your foot where you naturally would have it, and then you would sort of see whether you're holding the brake a little bit. So, or you can even just do it here. So, like, for example, here, I was resting on the foot a little bit, but if I sort of imagine it as I would, you can sort of tell I don't need any dead zone, but definitely make sure that you're using the correct amount of dead zone. Not too much, but also not too little. Like, this is an important one to make sure you've got right. But yeah, that is the calibration. And these are all the small details, of course. These are my control scheme for anybody that's interested on Fanatec. Of course, I'll just scroll all the way down. You guys can pause if need be. I have MFD shortcuts that mean I can jump to exact pages at certain times, which I think is quite useful. I can also change my brake bias with my top paddles, my differential with my right sort of spindle, I can't remember the name of it, and then my ERS with my other one. So I have sort of shortcuts all over the place. And then if we go, I don't know why we backed out there. And then if we go to vibration and feedback, this is probably quite a. I mean, this is what I have at the moment. These can obviously change, but I always run 70 force feedback. I think that is actually the default the game gives you, but I've used 70 for years now. I use one wheel damper. You can, in my opinion, you can run 0, 1. You can run it a little bit higher if you want, but most people use probably 0 or 1. It's kind of preference in that way. On track effects, I used to run at 15. I think I could still do this. It's not really a problem. But typically speaking, you would keep most of these on 0. Pit stop effects is new for this year. And then wheel rotation, the default of the game, important to note this, the default of the game is now 400 degrees. Now, albeit the steering animation still goes, sort of 360 degrees in the game, round. The rotation of this game has increased. So, for example, on 2023 and 2022, I used 290 rotation. 290 rotation now feels like 240 or something on the last game. It's quite everything feels a lot sharper. So at the moment I'm running 310, but I think I'm gonna play with a little bit higher and see sort of what works. I haven't really done much wheel rotation testing just yet, but this is something that I would recommend playing around with. I think a lot of people have went much higher. I haven't gone all the way higher just yet, but definitely play. If you used a certain wheel rotation on 23, for example, definitely don't be afraid to up it, even just 20 to 30 degrees to begin with, and then go up from there if you feel you need to, for example, as this year's game has definitely changed a little bit with the wheel rotation. So hope that's helpful for you guys. Alright, so moving on to graphics settings, which is probably one of the more important ones on the game. Gamma adjustment is just your sort of your brightness. Motion blur, I would run this on 0 unless you're sort of not really too bothered about the sort of the competitive aspects, but and just sort of like the way it looks. But yeah, I run this on 0. Steering animation on. Video mode. Now this is obviously where we set our FPS and stuff like that. But resolution, I would run this unless you're limited for FPS, of course, or you want to run something different. I use a 1440. as we have that's what our monitor runs. That we have to use in esports. Display mode, I have this in full screen. You can run this on windowed full screen, anything you really want, but I just run it on full screen. Aspect ratio, I just set it to 16:9. It can be set to automatic, but I just set it as 16:9 as that's what it is. VSync off, get it off. Yeah, hold on. I've never VSync interval. The game will display at the specified ratio as long as the performance is sufficient and you will not see any tearing. The game will display at half the specified ratio. Huh. I've always run that on auto, but I'm going to put it on 1 after reading that. Refresh rate, run this in the highest you can. Yeah, always run this at the highest you've got. I mean, we have 239, so that's what we run. Frame rate, we run, obviously, unfortunately, we have to use 60 FPS. Because that's still, what's quick on these games, is running, the 60 FPS stuff. So, yeah, that's what we run. I wish we didn't have to do that, but that's just the way it is. It's still faster. Output monitor, that's you choosing what monitor you want. Anisotropic filtering, I have this off by preference. Anti-aliasing, I have this on sharp. I've ran this, mostly I use this on sharpening. You can use sort of whatever you feel like really want. Sharpening, in my opinion, definitely looks the best though. So that's that. Anti-aliasing sharpness, again, we don't have... Oh, well, actually, yeah, you can sort of choose that if you like. We just run it on default. And yeah, that's sort of the video mode. We use the high preset, as this is what we had to use in esports last season. We used the high preset, but we turn particles off, and we have NVIDIA Reflex on boost, and this minimizes latency. Otherwise, I mean, weather effects are on high. You can turn that down if you really want to reduce the spray and stuff like that. Normally speaking, though, we would probably run almost everything on ultra low if we could, but again, it's not really... yeah, not really. We're not FPS limited running on 60. So yeah, those are completely customizable to your preference. Master volume, again, we run it down in 6. It's a bit too loud. Music, we turn it down a bit. Onboard mix, I use broadcast now. I always ran driver, but driver in this game sounds like you're in the cockpit now, where it's not really. It's a little bit different this year. So I think broadcast is what we're using now. Subtitles off. We have it on headphones, naturally. I don't really know what these really do, I'm going to be honest, but engineer ducking, we have that on light. I don't know if I turned this off actually in the past, I'm going to be honest, but the thing is we don't really, the engineer doesn't really speak to us way too much, so I'll explain that in a moment. Audio in the game background, off, just that's the normal option. Radio language English. Push to talk on. This is so that I don't have anyone in when I join an open lobby. My microphone isn't on and I can't hear anybody else. So because I don't have a push to talk button mapped, so I just leave this on. Mute by default means that everyone's muted by default, which is what I like. Voice chat ducking, I have that off. Absolutely. Otherwise, every time someone speaks, it's gonna reduce the volume. Upshift tone off. Parking sensor on because I'm really in a formation lap anyway. Radio verbosity, I have this on responses only, so my engineer will never speak to me unless I actually ask him through the radio button, or like the commands button, what I want to know. This is a preference thing because when the engineer... I had it in esports, I think it was Imola 2022. I was on my final lap of Q2 and my engineer randomly spoke to me mid-corner, and it was the most terrifying experience of my life, and I turned this on from ever since. So yeah, that's why I have that. I have the music type on theme for, not to get copyrighted while streaming. Player victory calls, I hate them, I have them off. And yeah, these are all just the telemetry settings. I run the LEDs off actually on Firetech as a preference, because it's just sort of like, I have them on in every other game, but I just have them off in F1. Don't know why, it's just preference. And yeah, these are your telemetry settings, which is useful for that sort of stuff. I think we've pretty much done everything, to be honest. So yeah, I don't want to waffle anymore. I hope that you enjoyed this settings guide on F124. Hope you found it useful and insightful. That's why I had the virtual mirror off, because the time trial OSD doesn't work for some reason. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hope you found this guide useful. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought, and any feedback that I can use to improve these videos for the future. But yeah, have a great rest of your day. Love yous all. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Ciao.